Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today we are going to be ranking the 7th Doctor era from worst to best. Now, we have been doing this recently. We ranked the 4th Doctor era, we ranked the 3rd Doctor era. Now that I've seen a lot of Doctor's complete eras. Now, I've ranked the 7th Doctor era once before, but it was coming off of a couple of his stories, so they were fresh on my mind. They might have ranked higher than I would after I let them dwell for a bit. And plus, I have been enjoying these videos with the premiere and the live chat going at the same time. You guys seem to be enjoying those as well. So I thought it would be a great opportunity to revisit this list and see where my opinion has changed. And already, just looking at the written list, I think I'm going to be rearranging a couple stories. But this is how I would rank the McCoy era, which I consider to be the most underrated era in all of Doctor Who. I love the McCoy era. It's very hard to rank it though, because I don't know if I have a favorite McCoy story. McCoy's era is very different. The stories in it are very different from each other tonally most of the time, which is true of every era to a degree. But McCoy's stories, it's less of what is my favorite story and more of what story am I in the mood for right now? Because his stories tonally jump so all over the place from story to story, season to season, that it's kind of just what I'm in the mindset to watch. So doing this list was actually, even though it's only like 12 stories, was actually very difficult in some places, especially on the upper side of the list. I kind of knew number 1 would be number 1. But like numbers 2, 3, 4, and 5 flip-flop. Matter of fact, I'll be reordering those, I think, from what I have written down. I'll discuss that when I get to it. But starting at the bottom of the list, we have in 12th place, Delta and the Bannermen. I'm not a big fan of this one. I don't hate it. I don't really like watching it. I've only watched it the one time. And I know Bobby loves this story. I know he's a huge fan of this one, but I don't see why. He's going to have to explain that one to me. I just don't get into it. McCoy's good in it. I like the girl that is kind of a pseudo-companion, the one they were kind of considering making a companion, Riley, I forget her name. She's good in it. The actress is doing good. Most of the acting is fine. The place where it takes place that looks like a rundown place, which in real life was this old rundown place they weren't using, looks like an old rundown place that nobody is using. It looks terrible. I wouldn't want to stay there. The whole thing about the blonde woman having the egg that hatches the green baby because her people have all these green, they look like melted G.I. Joe, you know, those old army men, the little plastic army men. Melted. It looks kind of like that, but yet she looks normal for some reason. And then the one guy who wants to be with her end up changing himself to kind of, it's really weird. Delta and the Bannermen is weird. And don't get me wrong, this is Doctor Who. Doctor Who can be weird. That's fine. But this is like a weird. I don't really know how to communicate that any better. It's just I have an easier time following Ghostlight than some of the odd choices made in this story. Although I do like the one guy, the guy who kind of runs the old rundown place. I think he's like an older guy. I did like him a lot. The villain is fine. The guy playing him is fine. It's weird watching him eat like the raw chicken stuff. Ooh. But the cliffhanger when he's like, oh, I may have gone too far. I did like that cliffhanger. The incidental music is weird. Like parts of the incidental music work and parts of the incidental music really don't work. And the combination of like incidental music with like 50s music is weird. And then like, you know, once again, this is another example of, oh, season 24 is so silly and campy. Nobody can take it seriously. And of course, my response is always, you haven't seen anything but Time in the Rani, have you? Because people think like all of season 24 is Time in the Rani. Not true. We watch an entire busload of people die here. They just die. Like people we kind of had time getting to know, and they just die. The bus gets like blown up, vaporized. And I'm like, oh, I wonder how the Doctor's going to save all of them. And he doesn't. They just died. And they wouldn't have died if the one driver hadn't, like, dropped the original rock that was supposed to power it. But he, like, accidentally, being clumsy, dropped it. And so the Doctor had to make another one. And then they would have been out of there sooner. So it's all because of his clumsiness they all die. I mean, that's... Why do people like this story? I do not get why anyone likes this story. I just don't care for Delta and the Bannermen. And then, I know it's got Ken Dodd in it. I know that's a big deal. I have no idea who Ken Dodd is. Apparently, he's a very funny guy. I don't know. I'm an American. A lot of this stunt casting from the 80s goes right over my head. Unless people in the comments mention it, I see it on the making of, or I see it on the behind the sofa. Oh, this has so-and-so in it. And I'm going, great! Who is so-and-so? So I guess Ken Dodd was a big deal to have him in it. But I mean, his death scene is horrific. He's scared. He gets shot in the back. It's a pretty dark story in places. Yeah, this story just doesn't come together for me at all. I find it very, I need to go back and rewatch that, but I haven't. You know why? Because I don't want to. That's Delta and the Bannermen for me. Number 11 on the list is The Greatest Show in the Galaxy. This one is definitely a marked improvement. It's perfectly watchable. I've only watched it the one time. I really do need to get that one on DVD, or the 25 set needs to come out. Somebody needs to send me Greatest Show on DVD, I guess. I've watched it once. I liked aspects of it. I think it's clever because this was the final one filmed in the season, and they had some kind of strike was going on, so it was clever for them to just set up the big tent and film there. That was really clever. I absolutely love the iconic shot of McCoy walking away with the tent just exploding behind him. I love that iconic shot a lot. The guy playing the head clown is fantastic. Let me state right there, he is doing such a good job here. The story gets points just for him. The head clown is creepy and awesome at the same time. It's like, you know, it kind of reminds me of like Tim Curry playing It. It's just so good. It's so good. He's so good in that role. That helps it along right there. I like the woman playing the werewolf. She's really good. I like her acting in it. And then the scene when she kind of starts to transform and she's like, ah, it's a pretty good little scene. I like her character design, like her outfit. It does have this kind of 80s goth thing going, which I really like. The professor that's there with her, though, pointless. Utterly pointless. Him being there is pointless. The taking puck shots at the fans in it, the kind of fourth wall break with the one guy representing the fandom, is annoying. And, you know, people are always like, classic Who didn't talk down to fans like modern Who does. And most of the time I would agree with that, but not here. I feel like it's purposely insulting fans of the show. The ones who might have critical objections to things being done, because I know a lot of people were cross with 80s Who at this point. And the numbers weren't there at this point, figure-wise. So it's almost like they're mocking them for that. You know, going after your fans is never a good idea. Also, the Gods of Ragnarok, the bit with the families, it looks weird. And then the Doctor just being there doing parlor tricks to buy time. It's so weird. It doesn't strike me as something the Doctor do. Ace will save the day. I'll just do parlor tricks. Da-da-da-da-da. I was only ever trying to teach you good habits, Ace. I don't know. The ending just doesn't come together for me. Although, I mean, it's neat to see Sylvester McCoy have an opportunity to show off the physical comedy he can do, you know, for an actor who's nicknamed the Human Bomb. That's pretty neat, knowing McCoy's backstory and upbringing, that he can do a lot of that stuff. That's pretty cool, so I let it slide a little on that, but story-wise, it's just silly. I don't get into this one. Again, it needs a rewatch, but I was not impressed with it, and I never understand why people like it as much as they do when some of the plot just doesn't, I won't say it doesn't make sense, but it's just not interesting or entertaining to me. Number 10 on the list is Time in the Rani. I don't hate Time in the Rani. I actually enjoy Time in the Rani. I mean, all of them at this point up. I do love the McCoy era. I do enjoy Time in the Rani. It's a miracle as good as it is when you know all of the behind-the-scenes production problems. that it was originally written for Colin Baker, that it was originally like in a forest, that there were so many rewrites, that Andrew Cartmel wasn't brought in until the story was already well underway, so he didn't really have any say in it. It's very much a Jonathan Nathan Turner thing here. It's fine. I think some of the special effects look really impressive for the 80s. The TARDIS getting shot by the laser beams at the beginning, that's like CGI. For like 1987 CGI, that's pretty impressive. The little bubble things people get trapped in and thrown into walls that explode, that's a pretty neat looking effect. The Tet Traps, is that what they're called? The Tet Traps? Oh, they look good with their eyes and the tongue and the eyes move. That's a really impressive creature design for Classic Who. It looks really good. And Kate O'Mara is obviously having a ball. She looks like she's so happy to be back in a quarry, having fun. The fact that Kate O'Mara is having such a good time makes me have such a good time watching it. And McCoy is fine in this role. I mean, he is leaning more into his comic talents, but I love it. I love when he's playing the spoons, and he even plays them on Kate O'Mara's chest. You couldn't do that now, but it's hilarious, and I'm sure Kate O'Mara probably found it hilarious too. She seemed to be having a good time. And I loved how the Doctor keeps mixing his metaphors in it. I find that amusing. I kind of wish they'd kept that. I actually enjoy this production. I mean, it has problems like, I mean, it has Mel in it, and that's never interesting. And then the Rani pretending to be Mel, and the Doctor buying it. It's kind of silly in places. I mean, the whole thing about the brain is a little out there, but it's Doctor Who. It works as a Doctor Who story. And I like some of the incidental music too. Like when the Doctor is kind of laying down with that thing on his head, you have some really kind of epic sounding incidental music going. I really like that music a lot. So Time in the Rani, I feel like, is better than it's given credit for, especially when you realize all of the problems the story had getting made to begin with. Next on the list is Silver Nemesis. Now, Silver Nemesis is another one I need to rewatch. That's another one I need to give a DVD. I've only watched Silver Nemesis once. It was many years ago. But I liked it. I think there might have been a little too much going on. There's like 3 different factions at work here. You have the kind of Neo group, and then you have the Cybermen, and then you have like the witch from in the past. So you have maybe one group too many there. And it is kind of a generic Walmart brand version of Remembrance of the Daleks. It's kind of the same story with, you know, one of the Doctor's greatest enemies trying to capture this key piece of Time Lord lore that the Doctor has hidden away and that he ultimately tricks him with. Remembrance definitely should have been the anniversary story and not this one. I guess I can see why 25 years is the silver anniversary, I believe. So Silver Nemesis, I get what JNT was doing. It still doesn't quite work. But my memories of the story is that I liked it. Again, it needs a rewatch. But, I mean, McCoy is very much Chessmaster McCoy in this, like he was in Remembrance. And I enjoy that, watching him manipulate everything that's going on. I don't really have a lot to say about this one because it really is just the bare cliff notes of it that are in my memory, to be honest. Number 8 on the list is Survival, the final Doctor Who story. Survival is fine. It's a good story. I think it gets a little too much credit simply because it is the final story. And that final scene of Ace and the Doctor walking away with that speech at the end, you know, about where, you know, rivers sleep and cities dream and all that. That's a beautiful speech. I love that speech. It's a great way to end the classic series. I love having Anthony Ainley back. This is probably his best performance in the role. I really felt like he got to do what he wanted with it. And I would have loved to have seen his master in the 7th Doctor more, because I really think the 7th Doctor really could be a worthy opponent for the Master to go up against. I mean, all the Doctors are, but just Chessmaster McCoy up against the Master doesn't stand a chance. And I enjoyed the few times we get to see them interact in this story a lot. Although that bit with the, if we fight like animals, we die like animals, it is McCoy going into that fake falsetto voice that I hate, so that kind of pulls away from it. Like animals! I hate when he does. He's such a good actor. He doesn't have the most range as an actor as some of the other actors who played the Doctor, but I still like him as an actor, and I love the 7th Doctor. but there are those moments where he goes into that fake voice. And I've heard Sylvester McCoy yell in real life. I know what he actually sounds like when he's yelling. And that's a good yell, but he just, I don't know why, goes into that fake voice, and it always pulls me out when he does. So it kind of pulls me out of that final confrontation from the Master, but everything up to that point is really good. There's definitely an 80s feel to this one. I guess the way everyone's dressed, I mean, it's an 80s story. But like the one guy with the sunglasses, the teenagers act like stereotypical teenagers of the time. A little too much so, like they're too much teenagers, if that makes sense. And then, of course, the cat outfits look silly, which even the writer didn't want that. A lot of the other people didn't want that kind of Puss in Boots looks. Most people didn't want that. And sure enough, it comes off as being a bit forced. But it's great to see Ace really get some growth. She does in a lot of, especially season 26, but it's nice to see her get some of that. And we kind of get to see more of her life before she got swept up in events, meet some of her friends and stuff. Kind of what we get in the modern series when we meet, a companion's family and friends and all that. We get kind of the template of that here with Survival. And that's pretty interesting, especially from a historical significance for Doctor Who. So a good story, but a bit overrated, I think, just because it's the final story. And next on the list at number 7 is Battlefield. I like Battlefield. The worst problem with Battlefield is the incidental music. I do find the incidental music really bad. Really bad. I don't like the incidental music. That, and sometimes some of the fighting looks a little choreographed and some of the humor is a little weird. Like when the two guys are fighting at the end and the Doctor just walks between them with his hat and they just kind of resume. But that's a little silly. But I love the King Arthur legend a lot. I really do. And so I enjoy that being incorporated into Doctor Who, and it basically being King Arthur is from another dimension. And that learning that a future version of the Doctor is Merlin. That's fascinating. I like when Doctor Who really plays with the timey-wimey thing sometimes. I mean, Moffat got a little carried away with it, but sometimes. So that's really neat here. I really would love to see the other end of that one day. Like the future Doctor when he actually does meet Arthur and all of them and becomes the other part of that story where he basically becomes Merlin. I still want to see that one day. I enjoy having Jean Marsh back. She's great as, Morgase? That Arthur's sister's name changes depending on what you're watching. So I'm Morgana. I forget which one it is in this one. Morgane, I think. She's great. Jean Marsh is fantastic in this role. I love having the Brigadier back. It's nice to have a good final story with the Brigadier, and Nicholas Courtney is fantastic in this story. I really like the other Brigadier, Bombera. The actress playing her is great. I really like her kind of no-nonsense approach. I like her a lot in this. The guy playing Jean Marsh's son is okay. And then the one other knight, the kind of good main knight, he's fine. And then I think this is the one where Ace has the kind of Asian girlfriend, I think. Am I getting that right? She's good. I can't remember her character's name, but she's really good in this too. So yeah, I enjoy it. The location work looks really good. I like the updated effects that were added later. The makeup for the Destroyer looks fantastic. That's probably some of the best creature design in all of Classic Who. That beats out some of the stuff in Modern Who. I mean, look at the Destroyer from 1989, and then look at, the Lazarus Experiment creature from like 2007. No contest. The Destroyer wins. He's beaten a little too easily. He's worked up to kind of be this big bad, and he's beaten a little too easily. I think he doesn't really do anything except get shot. But, I mean, they had his weakness, the silver bullets, so it works, I guess. It's a really good story. I like Battlefield a lot. Just the incidental music just drives me bonkers. And at number 6 on the list is Dragonfire. Now, you guys know I like Dragonfire if you've watched my channel a lot, so you're probably surprised it's this low. I'm surprised it's this low. There's just so many good stories in the McCoy era. I really like Dragonfire. One, we have Glitz back, and I love Glitz. I don't know why. Just Tony plays that role so well. Because if you look at Glitz on paper, he does some pretty despicable things. I mean, in this story, he sells his crew for money. He sells his crew and they basically get turned into mindless zombies, basically. It's a pretty despicable, deplorable thing. So he's not really what I'd call a good guy. But Tony plays him as this lovable rogue type, this kind of Han Solo type, this kind of, I'm not a good guy, but I kind of got maybe a heart of gold. And by the end of the story, Mel's gone with him. The Doctor's like giving him a ship, even though he's done these bad things. And again, a lot of that is down to the writing, the directing, and just Tony playing the character so well. I really like Glitz. He's one of my favorite parts of Trial of a Time Lord. And I'm really glad that I had the opportunity to see him interact with 2 different incarnations of the Doctor. And he's one of my favorite parts of this story. We also have Mel leaving. He gets points for that. We have Ace joining. I love Ace, so he gets points for that. Ace has a lot to do here. She does get introduced really well. I like how she quits her job. I can't remember if she poured the drink on the woman's head or the owner's head, but I like how she just quits her job. It has a couple rough spots. The cliffhanger, that's literally a cliffhanger. If they had added in the original dialogue that explained why he was hanging upside down, it would have worked better. But just him, the way it is, as transmitted, with him just kind of for no reason going over and then slipping down. It's silly. It doesn't make sense. It does get a bit of a hit because of that. That is a terrible cliffhanger, literally and figuratively. There was something else about this story that irked me, and it's slipped my mind. There is another issue I have with this story. I was thinking about it a moment ago, and I can't think of it at the moment. The slipping around on the ice. Like, they're supposed to be on an icy planet, so I get why Sylvester McCoy is slipping around the way he is. It, again, fits with his comedic background. He does it in a very exaggerated way that works. It's funny. The problem is no one else is doing it. And for that to work, everyone needs to be kind of sliding around, catching their footing, but no one else. If they're doing it, they're not doing it much. It's really just McCoy doing it, so that doesn't work. It doesn't work when just one actor's doing it and none of the others are either doing it at all or barely committing to it. So that's definitely an issue. I do love the set design. I actually think these sets look really good for this story. I love the kind of crystal ice areas. Those look like where the Doctor's hanging off with the umbrella. That's the set design to that I really like. I love the very alien-inspired creatures. It does definitely look like it was inspired from Alien. I like that it's kind of quite literally the key to what the Doctor's hunting for. And I love the fact that the alien ends up being a good guy. He's not really a monster or a villain, which is a very twist, considering it's heavily influenced by Alien from the look of it. The twist that it's actually a benevolent kind of creature is really neat, and I enjoy that. The actor playing Kane is doing a good job. I like the character of Kane, and the fact that he's fleshed out a bit. He obviously he lost a loved one. I don't remember if it was his wife or what it was. He has that ice sculpture made of her, so when the ice sculpture melts, he's angry, but he's also extremely upset and pained. You can tell that he's hurt and upset by it, that it has touched that cold heart of his, quite literally. Learning that he's angry with his own people because they basically exiled to him, so this is all a plan for revenge he has. And then when he learns his people were wiped out, centuries ago, that kind of, there's still like a sadness to him that even though he hated his own people, the fact that they're gone, he mourns them a little. The fact that he didn't have a purpose in life anymore and that he basically just let himself die because he had no other reason to go on at that point. Also, his death is so gruesome. Again, these people who are, season 24 is so silly and campy. I'm like, have you watched it? It's more than time in the Rani. Go watch Kane's death. It's very Raiders of the Lost Ark. I'm sitting there going, wow, I'm watching a family show / kids show. And, dude's face is melting off. But campy and silly. That's season 24, right? Literally, the only campy, silly story that you can point to is Time in the Rani. None of the other 3 are like that. All 3 of the others deal with some dark stuff in them. We have Patricia O'Quinn. Lady Stevens, of course, who's from the Rocky Horror Picture Show. I love the Rocky Horror Picture Show. So it's nice having her in this. She's a great example of, someone who has fallen prey to Cain and, what it's done to her, her life, how she just dreams of being free. That's it. Most people dream of fancy cars, millionaires, being remembered. Her main dream is just getting away, being free, what so many other people take for granted. And that's fascinating for me as a character. That's fascinating to me for her character. I really enjoy that, and Patricia's just great in the role. So I really like Dragonfire. I think there's just a lot of really good things going on in that story. Really good things. Number 5 on the list, and 2, 3, 4, and 5 are really hard to do. 2, 3, 4, and 5 are really hard. Those 4 places are very interchangeable. I ended up going with Paradise Towers. Now, most of you guys know I like Paradise Towers. I've still only watched it the one time. I do need to go back and rewatch it soon, probably with the original incidental music, because I know you can do that on the box set. But I really liked Paradise Towers. I mean, this early in the run, you do see McCoy scaling back on the comedic part of the 7th Doctor here. He's very serious in this story, very calm, collected, quiet. He has his umbrella. It's not his traditional umbrella. He wouldn't get that till Delta, which Delta does get a point for that. But he does still have his first umbrella here. I like the bit about the red Kangs and the yellow Kangs and the blue Kangs. And they have a very 80s outfit. It fits. It's very 80s. It is the 80s. The actresses playing the Kangs are fine. They come across as just teenage characters. Much better than the teenage characters, I think, in Survival. The cleanup machines are a little silly, kind of like the war machines and the war machines are. They're a little silly. But, I mean, if you're unsuspecting about a cleaning thing like that, it could definitely kill you. But, I mean, you have some interesting stuff going on. You kept hearing about the caretaker, and then what's his name? The head caregiver. Let's call him the caregiver. Richard, isn't that his name? Richard? The actor's name. How he's like, oh, hell, the great architect. That's it, the great architect. And what do we do with him? Kill him. I love that scene. I really love that scene. That you're not quite sure what's going on with the caretaker and why they would want to kill him. I do like the original script about how all of the men who were supposed to be left were the old, out-of-shape men, the ones who couldn't go off to fight. That would have worked better if they'd followed that. And the bit when they're looking at the rules, I wish the rule book had been like a thick book, like ridiculously thick, like they'd originally wanted to do. That would have worked better. I do think Richard does a good job playing the caretaker, and then later the architect. I know some people don't care for that casting. I think he's fine. I'm not familiar with the actor. Again, I don't really know a lot of the stunt casting since I'm an American. Paradise Towers really dives into some dark territory. This is like the one to point to when people are like, season 24 is so silly and campy. I'm like, have you watched Paradise Towers? Well, it's so overlit. No. Have you watched Paradise Towers? Like, actually paid attention to the story. Paradise Towers is this story that, if it had been part of season 13 and filmed the same way season 13 was filmed, I think it would be a better regarded story. The problem is, Paradise Towers is a season 24 story, so it's filmed in the style of season 24 with that overlit kind of rainbow paint camp to it. And it's a very, very thin coat of paint. Because like most of season 24, if you scratch beneath the camera techniques and the directing style used in those stories, there's a lot of dark subject matter. First off, you have the 2 old ladies who are cannibals. They're cannibals. They plan on eating male. That's what they're going to do. It's very obvious. And then seeing them get dragged down the garbage disposal chute, just seeing that arm grab them and pull them through, and you just see one of them's legs sticking out of the machine, that's dark stuff. Then you have possession, when the architect possesses the caretaker, effectively killing him. And there's something utterly terrifying about something that doesn't just kill you. It controls you like a puppet. Like, it kills you and then continues to use your body. Things like the Borg, basically, or zombies, or ghosts that possess you, or shapeshifters that kill you and then take your place. And not only are you dead, but your presence is being used to kill other people because it's shapeshift. There's something utterly scary and terrifying on a primal level about that. So the fact that it's possessed him and is using his body like a puppet at that point. It's truly terrifying. I actually like the way Richard plays the architect possessing the caretaker. I know some people don't think it's very well done, but keep in mind the architect hasn't had a physical body in a long time. Plus, it's a physical body that's actually someone else's body. So it makes sense that the architect wouldn't be able to control it fully at first, that it would be shambling around and talking. The kind of silver paint doesn't work for me, but the way he's moving around like someone not familiar with a human body and the way he talks like someone's not used to using vocal cords, that works for me. I actually find it a little creepy because, again, it plays into this thing is not a person. The person that was in there is gone. This is a thing possessing a person and puppeteering it around. And that performance really works for me like that. I guess most people just don't interpret that way. The scene with Mel in the water and the little thing in the water doesn't work, but it's Mel. A lot of Mel doesn't work. But yeah, I like Paradise Towers. I think it's a really, really good story. I enjoy it a lot. Number 4 on the list, and I think I'm going to move things around a little bit. I am going to go with Happiness Patrol in 4th place. Happiness Patrol and Paradise Towers remind me a lot of each other. I don't know why, but when I think of one, I almost immediately think of the other. Maybe it's because they're both supposed to be these places that are nice and happy and good, but there's this sinister undertone underneath. Because Happiness Patrol also has this thing where everyone is supposed to be happy, and not being happy is punishable by death. Kind of like in Macroterra on that place. It's supposed to be a happy place, but there's this shady underside to it. I enjoy Happiness Patrol. I know it's taking puck shots at Margaret Thatcher. Again, I'm an American. I wasn't very familiar with Margaret Thatcher and her policies. She seems extremely, what us Americans would call conservative. A lot of people today don't seem to be fond of her, but she must have been popular to some people in her time, or she wouldn't have been in office as long. I don't really know. The woman playing Helen A is good. I enjoy that. I like the set design a lot, I believe. I enjoy the Doctor and Ace in it. The little dog thing looks a little weird. The Candyman is one of the weakest parts of the story. I just don't get into the Candyman much in this story. Seems like you could have cut him and it would have been fine. I mean, the idea of being killed by sweets is interesting, and it works for this story especially, where everyone's supposed to be happy. You know, happiness will prevail. I love the fact that the story ends with Helen A being so upset she kind of breaks her own rules, because she's about to escape, and her spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, you know, her husband and like one of his friends steal the ship and go. So basically her husband leaves her. She finds out her dog died. She loved that dog, kind of like a rich uppity woman with her poodle, you know. Loves her dog she cares more about her dog than she does her people. And then, you know, her reign has basically been overthrown. So the last shot we see of her is basically crying. So she's breaking her own number one rule. And I think that's just irony, you know, ironic fate right there. I enjoy that. That's the perfect ending for her. It works better for her to be like that than to have been killed or to have been in prison. Seeing her like that's the perfect way to end that story. I like that. And then that whole scene when the Doctor basically dares the guy to shoot him because he knows the guy won't shoot him. Well, go ahead, pull the trigger in my life. And he grabs the gun and takes it away from him. My God. McCoy really does not get credit for his speeches. I mean, he also had that excellent speech in Battlefield. I forgot to mention that in Battlefield. That speech he delivers at the end of Battlefield could be the most underrated speech in all of Doctor Who. It's such a good speech. He does go in that falsetto voice one part at the end. But other than that, it's a phenomenal speech. But he also has that phenomenal one here where it's just so good when he basically dares the guy at gunpoint to shoot him. Gotta love McCoy. Such a good story, The Happiness Patrol. Number 3 on the list is Remembrance of the Daleks. What a lot of people would probably have as number 1. Remembrance is a really good story. I have nitpick issues with it. The little girl, her acting is actually really good most of the time. It has a couple little times where it isn't. But that's more just, you know, she's acting like a little girl, so it fits. Some of her acting is actually really good. Just some of the looks and glares and smirks she does are really impressive. I do hate that little piece of music that plays when she's there, that little children's tune. I really hate that, and it plays it way too many times. At least it seems like too many times. I hate that. That drives me bonkers. Finding out she's basically, again, spoilers, you know, that the story tries to trick you a lot, thinking into Davros is heading one faction of the Daleks, and it turns out to be the little girl. That's a little silly. I don't quite buy it. The one human resistance guy with unit or whatever who turns out to be a traitor, kind of saw that coming, to be honest. I don't know why, but I remember the first time I watched the story, it didn't surprise me. The actor playing him is okay. Nothing stand out, honestly, but he's okay. He's fine. I know he passed away way too young, as the actor did, but his performance here is fine. Ace is good in this one. I absolutely love her disgust when she finds that one sign. You know the one I mean. And now she just has to leave and get out of there. I think Sophie plays that perfectly. Unlike in the modern series where she would have delivered a great speech looking directly at the camera about how wrong it was, because subtle is not a word Chibnall knows. Everything you need to know about what Ace thinks about that sign is conveyed in her expression without a word said. Classic Who is very good at this. So you can tell just from the look on her face and the fact she leaves her thoughts on the matter, and that's done very, very well. The blast effects for the Daleks do need some updating, but they still look pretty good. They almost have this 3D look, like they're trying to come out of the screen at times. They could use some updating, but they're fine. I love the special weapons Dalek. I love the special weapons Dalek. So it's nice seeing it in here. The Emperor, finding out Davros is actually in control of the other faction of the Daleks is pretty cool. Finding out that McCoy, the Seventh Doctor, has basically set all of this up. This is the first time we really see Chessmaster McCoy. And when he has that final confrontation with Davros, when they're talking over like the video phone, and you start to learn the Seventh Doctor is not someone you should screw with, that's a really good scene. That is a really good scene. Unlimited rice pudding, etc., etc. Have pity on me. I have pity for you. Goodbye, Davros. It hasn't been pleasant. I love that. That's a great scene. The fact that he set this all up, that he managed to destroy Skaro, even though it somehow comes back in Modern Who. I enjoy all of that. That's really well done. I love the opening teaser before the credits. We didn't get that much in Classic Who with just the ship looming toward the Earth. I like that. I don't know why. It just gives you this feeling of, it kind of has that Star Wars look to it at the beginning, the first shot of A New Hope. It kind of has this ominous, whoa, something's going on to it that I really like. The Dalek takes way too long to get up the stairs. I like the cliffhanger. You know, when the Dalek's coming up the stairs to kill the Doctor, it's nice seeing that the Daleks can't hover upstairs. That's cool. But then the resolution of that's silly, and it takes the Dalek what seems like 15 minutes to get up the stairs. I mean, you got time to make tea and drink it before the Dalek gets through. Don't they actually do that? I actually think they're drinking tea when doesn't it do that? It's like, the Dalek's like, I'm going to be up these stairs in 15 minutes. And another 15 minutes after that, I'll have blasted through that wooden door. You better not be there. But it's so silly. I can't take that part seriously. I just can't. But of course, we also get to see Ace jump through a window and beat up a Dalek. And then the cliffhanger where she's confronted by all the other Daleks is a pretty cool little cliffhanger. Watching the Doctor zip line down onto the ship. And of course, it's got the one guy, the one actor playing kind of the head of the school that's also in Invisible Enemy and is also in Pyramids of Mars. And I like him, so it's good to see him back. So yeah, Remembrance is definitely a must-see Doctor Who and ranks at number 3 on my list. And at number 2 on the list is Ghostlight. I really love Ghostlight. It just has this atmosphere over it that just hangs over the whole story. It's just dripping with it. It has this feel to it. Ghostlight is a very unique Doctor Who story. I don't think there's any other Doctor Who story that is like it, that even feels like it tonally. It's kind of maybe one of the reasons why I like Haunting of Villa Diodati. It has that kind of weird, unusual atmosphericness to it, especially in like the first half of it. that Ghostlight does. Midnight is really good about that as well. There's just something off about this episode, and I love it. I mean, I'm still not 100% certain what's happening in it. And I've watched it several times. It has such a strong rewatchability, but just the Victorian house that it's set in is so well made. I love the set design for this place, and the actors cast are just phenomenal. It's some of the best guest casting in all of Doctor Who. It's some great backstory for Ace, seeing her back in this house that terrifies her. McCoy is doing a good job most of the story. It's nice to see him without his hat here. He doesn't wear his hat in most of it. He does have that one scene where I'm like, okay, man, you're trying too hard. Back it up a notch. Back it up a notch. But for the most part, he's doing some good acting. The guest cast do a really good job playing their characters, as all of their characters, for the most part, feel off. The aliens in it feel alien. Even the ones that look human feel alien. And the mother-daughter couple also feel off. They don't feel normal. Like, you know, if you had a conversation with them, you would be like, okay, something is weird here. What is with these people? They, you know, just talking to them, you can tell they're not normal, let us say. They're unusual. There's something off about them. All of the actors convey that really well. I love the story. I might not 100% get the story, but I love it. I love the character of Light. Also, the effect of Light is pulled off really well. It kind of reminds me of Kai in The Mutants, when he turns into the butterfly-like thing. Light looks really good. He's realized really well. The effect used to realize him on a classic Doctor Who budget is pretty impressive, actually. And I understand Light's confusion. He's frustrated because he feels like his job will never get finished, because by the time he finishes categorizing everything, everything's changed. It's like trying to sort out pieces of sand on a beach, and then you go to sleep and the wind's blowing everything and mixed it all up again, so you got to start over. You know, or pushing a boulder up a hill and it rolling back down. You get frustrated because you're not getting anywhere, and you feel like you'll never get done. So I understand where Light's coming from and why he's taking the extreme steps he's taking. The actress playing Control feels extremely alien. The guy who looks kind of the Cro-Magnon character is playing that part really well. It's just, the casting is so good. And then just what happens to characters, like the policeman being turned into soup. I like that part when the doctor's like, I told you not to eat the soup. Learning what had happened to him. It's interesting seeing the evolution of, like, the dad of the house, I forget his name, how he looks all kind of weird. He's slightly humanoid, but he's creepy looking, and then he sheds that skin into the more humanoid looking one, and that he's been evolving all that time. That's fascinating. It's just, the story is fascinating. The execution of the story is fascinating. It's directed well. The lower lighting fits it. It's just, there is no Doctor Who story quite like Ghostlight, and it's so much fun to go back and rewatch. I absolutely love it. And number one is Curse of Fenric. Now, I don't know if Curse of Fenric is my favorite McCoy story. I don't really have a favorite McCoy story. I think objectively it might be the best one. I know usually the argument's probably between Curse and Remembrance, and that's fair. They're both essential Doctor Who viewing. But this is very much McCoy. It and Remembrance is McCoy at his most chess mastery, perhaps. Again, you kind of have him setting things up. You find out about the ancient evil, the Fenric, which of course he has defeated before, and that he's setting up to defeat again, while at the same time he's also trying to help Ace confront some of her problems. I love the location work for this story. It's really, really good. I love the hemivores and how they're basically vampires, but they have that crustaceous look to them, kind of like the pirates in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, that they come from this alternate future where things went badly. I actually love that. I think their design is really impressive. Again, especially for classic Who. I think the two girls that start out as the bratty girls and get turned into the vampires, I think they're doing some good acting there. And I like how once they become vampires, they go back to like their evil stepmother or whoever she is and kill her as well. A lot of people die in this story. A lot of people die in this story. It's very dark. It's that horror Fenric kind of dark. Come play with us. That soldier was dumb. Trust me, if I see two girls in the water, their nails are this long, they're like, come play with us. I'm going to be like, I either need to run or shoot. I definitely wouldn't be like, ho, 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 ho. Nah. I didn't feel any pity for him when they got him. The guest cast are doing a good job. I like Nick Parsons in this. Again, I am not really familiar with Nick Parsons. I know it's a big deal he was in this. I believe he was a famous game show host. But I know he was also an actor before he became Nick Parsons, basically. The famous game show Nick Parsons. And it's great that they had him in this, and I'm great that he was in the making of, too. I think he was 96 when he did the making of documentary. And, of course, he passed right around when the box set came out, so I'm glad they were able to get him for that. I don't like his death in this. I just feel it's a little anticlimactic. And I think it's kind of sad because he did die because he had lost faith and that he tried to get it back and he couldn't. And that he only made them stumble back for a second before they got him. I kind of wish he'd been in the story more. The guy playing the main Russian commander, the one that, spoiler alert, the one that gets kind of possessed at the end, I think the actor playing him is doing a really good job. I liked him. The guy playing the older professor, the one in the wheelchair, I like him as well. I really enjoyed the location work. It's such a good story. I don't really know what else more to say. To me, it's kind of the essential McCoy story. It's the one where if people are going to watch a McCoy story for the first time, I'd either say Remembrance or Curse of Fenric. Those are the two. If I was like, I need to watch some McCoy stories, watch those two. Go from there. Because I just think it's really neat. It's got a lot of really good snappy dialogue in it. I love the updated effects. I really like Curse of Fenric. So I would like to know what you think. Oh, also the original version of this list. Originally in second place I had Happiness Patrol, third place Ghostlight, and fourth place Remembrance. I did swap them around a little bit for this list because my lists fluctuate. I could do this same list a year from now and things might be in different order. My lists do tend to shift around, especially the middle parts usually. So I want to know what you think. Comment down below and tell me how you would rank the McCoy era from worst to best. Other things to do, don't forget to click the like button and the subscribe button. That helps me out, and I certainly appreciate it. I am trying to reach 1,000 subscribers this year. That is my goal in 2023. We're kind of been going back and forth lately. I'll get a couple, lose a couple, lose a couple, get a couple. I'm kind of going back and forth. I also have a P.O. box if there's anything you would like to send me to look at and review. I am trying to... I do need to watch Silver Nemesis again, and I definitely need to watch Greatest Show in the Galaxy again. I've only seen both of those once. So if there's anything you would like to send, that's down there. I also have a Patreon if you would like to support me that way. That does help me keep the bills paid, especially lately. And I certainly appreciate that. I want to give a shout out to some of my top tier patrons, Stephen Crane, Finn Perkins, and Colin Coney. I appreciate their support. I want to give a special shout out to Finn Perkins. He actually... hooked me up with a really nice computer setup lately because I actually know Finn in person, and he actually had what he called an old computer. It's from 2020. It's his idea of an old computer. And he's like, I could give it to you. And he literally just gave me it, and it's way better than my laptop. I still got to get like some speakers and a microphone for it, but it was really, really generous of him. And he gave me like 2 monitors for it. I'm going to, when I get it set up running properly, I'm going to show you all that. It's really neat. It was really, really generous of him to do that, and it's very much appreciated, Finn. Thank you very much for that. Finn also likes Airwolf. I'm also a huge fan of Airwolf, so I found that out. He happened to mention if I'd ever seen Airwolf, and I lit up like a light bulb, like, I love Airwolf. I've been watching this since I was like 3 years old. I also have a link to my Amazon wish list down there as well, if anyone would like to send anything on that. Most importantly, though, thank you for watching.